Chapter 33, 6th Century Political Economy. However, I made a dead set at him, and before the first third of dinner was reached, I had him happy again. It was easy to do. In a country of ranks and castes, you see, in a country where they have ranks and castes, a man isn't ever a man. He is only part of a man. He can't ever get his full growth. You prove your superiority over him in station or rank or fortune, and that's the end of it. He knuckles down. You can't insult him after that. No, I don't quite mean that, of course, but you can insult him. I only mean that it's difficult. And so, unless you've got a lot of useless time in your hands, it doesn't pay to try. I had the Smith's reverence now because I was apparently immensely prosperous and rich. I could have had his adoration if I had some little gimmick title of nobility. And not only this, but any commoners in the land, though he were of the mightiest production of all the ages, in intellect, worth, and character, and I bankrupt in all three. This was to remain so as long as England should exist in the earth. With the spirit of prophecy upon me, I could look into the future and see her erect statues and monuments to her unspeakable Georges and other royal and noble clothes horses, and leave unhonored the creators of this world, after God, Gutenberg, Watt, Arkwright, Whitney, Morse, Stevenson, and Bell. The king got his cargo aboard, and then, the talk not turning upon battle, conquest, or ironclad duel, he dulled down to drowsiness and went off to take a nap. Mrs. Marco cleared the table, placed the beer keg handy, and went away to eat her dinner of leavings in humble privacy, and the rest of us soon drifted into matters near and dear to the hearts of our sort. Business and wages, of course. At a first glance, things appeared to be exceedingly prosperous in this little tributary kingdom, whose lord was King Badgemagus, as compared with the state of things of my own region. They had the protection system in full force here, whereas we were working along down toward free trade by easy stages, and were now about halfway. Before long, Dowley and I were doing all the talking and the others hungrily listening. Dowley wormed to his work, snuffled an advantage in the air, and began to put questions which he considered pretty awkward ones for me, and they did have something of that look. In your country, brother, what is the wage of a master bailiff, master hind, carter, shepherd, swineherd? 25 milrays a day, that is to say a quarter of a cent. The smith's face beamed with joy. He said, with us they are allowed the double of it. And what may a mechanic get? Carpenter, dauber, mason, painter, blacksmith, wheelwright, and the like. On average, 50 milrays, half a cent a day. Ho ho! With us, we're allowed 100. Within us, any good mechanic is allowed a cent a day. I count out the tailor, but not the others. They are allowed a cent a day, and in driving times, they get more. Yes, up to 110, even 115 milrays a day. I've paid 115 myself within the week. Rah for protection, to Sheol with fair trade. And his face shone upon the company like a sunburst. But I didn't scare at all. I rigged up my pile driver and allowed myself 15 minutes to drive him into the earth. Drive him all in. Drive him in till not even the curve of his skull should show above the ground. Here's the way I started in on him. I asked, what do you pay for a pound of salt? 100 milrays. We pay 40. What do you pay for beef and mutton when you buy it? It was a neat hit. It made the color come. It varies somewhat, but not much. One may say 75 milrays to the pound. We pay 33. What do you pay for eggs? 50 milrays the dozen. We pay 20. What do you pay for beer? It cost us 8.5 milrays the pint. We get it for 4. 25 bottles for a cent. What do you pay for wheat? At the rate of 900 milrays the bushel. We pay 400. What do you pay for a man's tow linen suit? 13 cents. We pay 6. What do you pay for a stuffed gown for the wife of the laborer or the merchant? We pay 8 cents, 4 mils. Well, observe the difference. You pay 8 cents and 4 mils. We only pay 4 cents. I prepared now to sock it to him. I said, look here, dear friend, what's become of your high wages you were bragging about a few minutes ago? And I looked around on the company in placid satisfaction, for I had slipped up on him gradually and tied him hand and foot, you see. without his ever noticing that he was being tied at all. What's become of those noble high wages of yours? I seem to have knocked the stuffing out of all of them, it appears to me. But if you'll believe me, he merely looked surprised. That is all. He didn't grasp the situation at all. He didn't know he had walked into a trap, didn't discover that he was in a trap. I could have shot him for sheer vexation. With cloudy eye and a struggling intellect, he fetched this out. Mary, I seem not to understand. It is proof that our wages be double thine. How then may it be that thou hast knocked therefrom the stuffing? A miscall, not the wonderly word, and being the first time under the grace and providence of God it had been granted me to hear it. Well, I was stunned, partly with this unlooked-for stupidity on his part, and partly because his fellows so manifestly sided with him, and were of his mind, if you might call it. My position was simple enough, plain enough. How could it be simplified more? However, I must try. Why, look here, Brother Dowley, don't you see? Your wages are merely higher than ours in name, not in fact. Hear him, they're double. You've confessed it yourself. Yes, I don't deny that at all. But that's got nothing to do with it. The amount of the wages is mere coins, with meaningless names attached to them, to know them by. Has got nothing to do with it. The thing is, how much can you buy with your wages? That's the idea. While it is true that with you a good mechanic is allowed about $3.50 a year, and with us is allowed only about $1.75. There, you're confessing it again. Confound it, I've never denied it, I tell you. What I say is this. With us, $half buys more than $1 buys you, and therefore it stands to reason the commonest kind of common sense that our wages are higher than yours. He looked dazed and said despairingly, Fairly, I cannot make it out. You just said ours are the higher. With the same breath, you take it back. Oh, great Scott! It is impossible to get such a simple thing through your head. Look here, let me illustrate. We pay 4 cents for a woman's stuffed gown. You pay 8.40, which is 4 mills more than double. What do you allow a laboring woman who works at a farm? 2 mills a day. Very good. We allow but half as much. We pay her only 1/10 of a cent a day. And again, you're Wait, now you see. The thing is very simple. This time you'll understand it. For instance, it takes your woman 42 days to earn her gown at 2 mills a day. 7 weeks' work. But ours earns hers in 40 days. 2 days short of 7 weeks. Your woman has a gown and her whole 7 weeks of wages are gone. Ours has a gown and 2 days' wages left to buy something else with. There, now you understand it. He merely looked dubious. It's the most I can say. So did the others. I waited to let the thing work. Dowley spoke at last and betrayed the fact that he had actually gotten away from his rooted and grounded superstitions yet. He said with a trifle of hesitancy, But you cannot fail to grant that 2 mills a day is better than 1. Shucks, well of course, I hated to give it up, so I chanced with another flyer. Let's suppose another case. Suppose one of your journeymen goes out and buys the following articles. A pound of salt, 12 eggs, 12 pints of beer, a bushel of wheat, a tow linen suit, 5 pounds of beef, 5 pounds of mutton. The lot will cost him 32 cents. It takes him 32 working days to earn the money. 5 weeks and 2 days. Let him come to us and work 32 days at half the wages. He can buy all those things for a shade under 14.5 cents. They will cost him a shade under 29 days of work, and he will have about half a week's wages over. Carry it through the year. He would save nearly a week's wages every 2 months, and your man nothing, thus saving 5 or 6 weeks' wages a year, and your man not a cent. Now, I reckon you understand that high wages and low wages are phrases that don't mean anything in the world until you find out which of them will buy the most. It was a crusher. But alas, it didn't crush. No, I had to give up. What those people valued was high wages, and it didn't seem to be a matter of any consequence to them whether the high wages could buy anything or not. They stood for protection and swore by it, which was reasonable enough, because interested parties had gulled them into the notion that it was protection which had created their high wages. I proved them that the quarter of a century their wages had advanced but 30%, while their cost of living had gone up 100. And with that, in shorter time, wages had advanced 40%, while the cost of living had steadily gone down. But it didn't do any good. Nothing could unseat their strange beliefs. Well, I was smarting under a sense of defeat. Undeserved defeat, but what of it? That didn't soften the smart any. And to think of the circumstances, the first statesman of the age, the capablest man, the best informed man in the entire world, the loftiest uncrowned head that had moved through the clouds of political firmament for centuries, sitting here apparently defeated in argument by an ignorant country blacksmith. And I could see that those others were sorry for me, which made me blush till I could smell my whiskers scorching. But put yourself in my place. Feel as mean as I did, as ashamed as I felt. Would you have struck below the belt to get even? Yes, you would. It's simple human nature. Well, this is what I did. I'm not trying to justify it. I'm only saying that I was mad and anybody would have done it. Well, when I made up my mind to hit a man, I don't plan out to love tap him. No, that isn't my way. As long as I'm going to hit him at all, I'm going to hit him like a lifter. And I don't jump at him all of a sudden and risk making a blundering halfway business of it. No, I get away yonder to one side and work up on him gradually so that he never suspects that I'm going to hit him at all. And by, in a flash, he's flat on his back and can't tell for the life of him how that happened. That's the way I went after Brother Dowley. I started talking and lazy and comfortable as if I was just talking to pass the time, and the oldest man in the world couldn't have taken the bearings of my starting place and guessed where I was going to fetch up. Boys, there's a good many curious things about law and custom and usage and all that sort of thing when you come to look at it. Yes, but about the drift and progress of human opinion and movement too. There are written laws, they perish, but they are also unwritten laws, and they are eternal. Take the unwritten law of wages. It says they've got to advance, little by little, straight through the centuries, and notice how it works. We all know what wages are now, here and there, and yonder. We strike an average and say that's the wages today. We know what the wages were 100 years ago and what they were 200 years ago, and that's as far back as we can get. But it suffices us to give us the law of progress, the measure and the rate of the periodic augmentation. And so, without a document to help us, we can come pretty close to determining what the wages were 3 and 4 and 500 years ago. Good, so far. Do we stop there? No. We stop looking backwards. We face around and apply the law to the future. My friends, I can tell you what people's wages are going to be at any date in the future you want to know, for hundreds and hundreds of years. What, Goodman, what? Yes, in 700 years, wages will have risen to 6 times what they are now. Here in your region, and farmhands will be allowed 3 cents a day and mechanics 6. I might die now and live then, interrupted Smug the wheelwright, with a fine avaricious glow in his eye. And that isn't all. They'll get their board besides, such as it is, and it won't bloat them. 250 years later, pay attention now. A mechanic's wages will be, mind you, this is law, not guesswork. A mechanic's wages will be 20 cents a day. There was a general gasp of awed astonishment. Dickon the mason muttered with eyes raised and hands. More than 3 weeks' pay for 1 day's of work. Riches! Of a truth, yes, riches, muttered Marco, his breath coming quick and short with excitement. Wages will keep on rising little by little, as steadily as a tree grows. And at the end of 340 more years, there'll be at least one country where a mechanic's average wage will be 200 cents a day. It knocked them absolutely dumb. Not a man of them could get his breath for upwards of 2 minutes. Then the coal burner said prayerfully, "Might I but live to see it. It is the income of an earl," said Smug. "An earl, said ye?" said Dowley. "Ye could say more than that and speak no lie. There's no earl in the realm of Badgemus that hath an income like that. Income of an earl? That's the income of an angel. Now then, what is it going to happen as regards to wages? In that remote day, the man will earn, with 1 week's work, that bill of goods which takes you upwards of 50 weeks to earn now. Some other pretty surprising things are going to happen too. Brother Dowley, who is that determines every spring what the particular wage of each kind of mechanic, laborer, and servant shall be for that year? Sometimes the courts, sometimes the town council, but most of all the magistrate. You may say in general terms it's the magistrate that fixes the wages. Doesn't any of those poor devils help him to fix their wages for him, does he? Huh, that were an idea. Masters that pay him the money are the ones that rightly concerned with the matter, you will notice. Yes, but I thought the other man might have some little trifling stake in it too, and even his wife and children, poor creatures. The masters are these, nobles, rich men, the prosperous generally. These few who do no work determine what pay the vast hive shall have who do the work. You see, they're a combine, a trade union, to coin a new phrase, who band themselves together to force their lowly brother to take what they choose to give. 1,300 years hence, so says the unwritten law, the combine will be the other way, and then how these fine people's posterity will fume and fret and grit their teeth over the insolent tyranny of trade unions. Yes, indeed, the magistrate will tranquilly arrange the wages from now clear away down into the 19th century. And then all of a sudden the wage earner will consider that a couple thousand years or so is enough of this one-sided sort of thing, and he will rise up and take a hand in fixing his wages himself. He will have a long and bitter account of wrong and humiliation to settle. Do you believe that he actually will help fix his own wages? Yes, indeed, and he will be strong and able then. Brave times of a truth, sneered the prosperous smith. Oh, and there's another detail. And that day a master may hire a man for only just 1 day, or 1 week, or 1 month at a time if he wants to. What? It's true. Moreover, the magistrate won't be able to force a man to work for a master the whole year on a stretch, whether the man wants to or not. Will there be no law or sense in that day? Both of them, Dowley. In that day a man will be his own property, not the property of magistrate and master, and he can leave town whenever he wants to if the wages don't suit him, and they can put him in the pillory for it. Perdition catch such an age, shouted Dowley in strong indignation, an age of dogs, an age barren of reverence for superiors and respect for authority. The pillory! Oh, wait, brother, say no good word for that institution. I think the pillory ought to be abolished. A most strange idea. Why? Well, I'll tell you why. Is a man ever put in the pillory for a capital crime? No. Is it right to condemn a man to a slight punishment for a small offense, then kill him? There was no answer. I had scored my first point. For the first time the smith wasn't up and ready. The company noticed. Good effect. You don't answer, brother. You were about to glorify the pillory a while ago and shed some pity on a future age that isn't going to use it. I think the pillory ought to be abolished. What usually happens when a poor fellow is put into the pillory for some little offense that didn't amount to anything in the world. The mob try to have some fun with him, don't they? Yes. They begin by clodding him, and they laugh at themselves to pieces to see him try and dodge one clod and get hit with another. Yes. Then they throw dead cats at him, don't they? Yes. Well, then suppose he has a few personal enemies in the mob here and there, a man or woman with a secret grudge against him. And suppose especially that he is unpopular in the community for his pride or his prosperity or one thing or another. Sticks and stones, they take the place of clods and cats, presumably, don't they? There's no doubt of it. As a rule, he is crippled for life, isn't he? Jaws broken, teeth smashed out, or legs mutilated, gangrene presently cut off. Or an eye knocked out, maybe both eyes. It's true, God knoweth it. And if he is unpopular, he can depend on dying, right there on the stocks, can't he? He surely can, one may not deny it. I take none of it you are unpopular by reason of pride or insolence or conspicuous prosperity, or any of those things that excite envy and malice among the base scum of a village. You wouldn't think it much of a risk to take a chance in the stocks. Dowley winced visibly. I judged he was hit, but he didn't betray it in any spoken word. As for the others, they spoke out plainly and with strong feeling. They said they had seen enough of the stocks to know what a man's chance in them was, and that they would never consent to enter them if they could compromise on a quick death by hanging. Well, to change my subject, for I think I've been established my point that the stocks ought to be abolished. I think that some of our laws are pretty unfair. For instance, if I do a thing which ought to deliver me to the stocks, and you know that I did it, and you keep still and don't report me, you will get the stocks if anybody informs on you. Ah, but that would serve you right, said Dowley, for you must inform, so saith the law. The others coincided. Well, all right, let it go, since you vote me down. But there's one thing which certainly isn't fair. The magistrate fixes a mechanic's wage at 1 cent a day, for instance. The law says that if any other master shall venture, even under the utmost press of business, to pay anything over that cent a day, even for a single day, he shall be both fined and pilloried for it. And whoever knows he did it and doesn't inform, they also shall be fined and pilloried. Now, it seems to me unfair, Dowley, and a deadly peril to all of us, that because you thoughtlessly confessed a while ago that within a week you have paid a cent and 15 mil. Oh, I tell you that, it was a smasher. You ought to have seen him go to pieces, the whole gang. I just slipped up on the poor, smiling and complacent Dowley, so nice and easy and softly, that he never suspected anything was going to happen till the blow came crashing down and knocked him all to rags. A fine effect. In fact, as fine as any I ever produced with so little time to work it up in it. I saw a moment that I had overdone a thing a little. I was expecting to scare them, but I wasn't expecting to scare them to death. They were mighty near it, though. You see, they had been the whole lifetime learning to appreciate the pillory and to have the thing staring them in the face, and every one of them distinctly at the mercy of me, a stranger, if I chose to go and report. Well, it was awful. They couldn't seem to recover from the shock. They couldn't seem to pull themselves together. Pale, shaky, dumb, pitiful. Why, they weren't any better than so many dead men. I was very uncomfortable. Of course, I thought they would appeal to me to keep mum, and they would shake hands and take a drink all around and laugh it off. And there was an end. But no, you see, I was an unknown person, among a cruelly oppressed and suspicious people, a people always accustomed to having advantage taken of their helplessness, and never expecting just or kind treatment from any but their own families and very closest intimates. Appeal to me to be gentle, to be fair, to be generous? Of course they wanted to, but they couldn't dare.